I have disposable mechanical pencils from like 2015.
So you just don't write anything anymore, which is
That's
cool.
what it sounds like. You don't use it.
I use pens more often than I use pencils.
I'm a pen person. And it has to be good paper. Like I like writing what I'm doing the day of on a legal pad. And don't buy Amazon Basics legal pads. They're terrible. They're just like it's coarse, etc. Like it doesn't buy like normal paper from wherever, and then buy the Amazon version. You're like, are you kidding me? Like this is like it's like sandpaper. It's really bizarre. Don't like it whatsoever. Because you can have a nice pen, and if your paper's terrible, garbage. But Kevin, you're telling us you have like a super sick pencil.
Well, that's going to be my favorite, but I'll do something that's not my favorite. This is my favorite notepad. It's made from a company called Grove-Made, and it's it's not like what is it, 3M note sticky? Like they just come in and off, so you can rearrange. I don't know. I just love it. It's not lined; it has dots, so you can. It's one of those things.
Is this another like Kickstarter find of yours?
No, Grove-Made's a real company. I also have something that I don't think you need, but I find joy in. It's a desk pad. It's like a leather thing that you put on top of a wooden desk.
Yeah.
And put your keyboard or other things on top of that. Yeah.
Desk pad. Oh, I see it.
Seen the Target version of those?
I'm sure there's pleather options. Yeah. If you're a pleather person.
These aren't, I mean, you say you don't need, but it's not like pricey by any means. Like
it gives you a new desk. I mean, it honestly makes your desk feel new. And if you're doing audio stuff, it also helps cut down on sound. I think Mike Line has a felt version, which is also, some people like that feeling. I think it's awful. Not much more. But for those who like felt,
very reasonable prices for something that seems like this seems very bougie. Like this would be like excessive, and you're like, oh, it's $50. Depends on the size.
Yeah, see that?
But it's not.
Potato. You say bougie. I say you must work from home and do real work. So like, if you're going to work from home and actually work, I don't. It's the same reason I have a pillow. Well, here's it's like you sleep every day, right? Don't you want a good pillow?
Yeah. Here's what's the phrase? What's trending? Girl math. Blah, blah, blah. Here's boy math. Boy math is how much it is divided by how many times you use it. Or how much you would have paid.
Girl math.
Or how many times you pay. Well, girl math would be like, I spent $400 at the store. I return it, and then I spend that money again. It's free money. That's kind of like the trending. Like, no, you're still negative 400 at some point.
I think we should let the lady talk about lady math.
But that's like the trend, right? Like that's the.
I'm cracking up.
Hey, this episode also brought to you by Mucinex Fastmax. It's my current reality. This will be a more, despite the cold open here, this will be a kind of more direct and to the point episode because Olivia's gonna have to cut out a lot of sneezing. I think I'm going downhill fast, but Mucinex Fastmax. I don't know if you all are still like NyQuil, DayQuil people, but this stuff is awesome.
Does it give you the loopy doop though?
No, no loopy doop. And what's nice is you can take this. It's acetaminophen is the only pain stuff in it.
Okay, Tylenol.
You can take ibuprofen with this if like you really need to power through something.
See, ibuprofen's legit.
No problem.
Acetaminophen. This episode brought to you by, I'm looking at the drugs that are on my desk that are prescribed by a doctor, which help me function better. That's also great to have as well. So keep it going.
This episode brought to you by Bubble Water. I have nothing cool to offer in this scenario.
Bubble Water, Spindrift is my favorite.
Let's get started then.
Let's go.
Welcome to episode 322. I'm Kevin Oakley, and with me today is Beth Russell and Andrew Peak, and we are medicated. I have a cold or the flu. Beth is here, but she says don't trust what she says.
She's got loop-de-loops, loop-de-doos.
Andrew's on prescription medication of some kind that we're not talking about. And we're going to talk about marketing today.
Dopamine levels.
And online sales. So
let's go. Yeah.
We got a lot to do. Beth, let's start with your story time, which I love. It just says choosing lunch.
Yeah.
Is my show note here.
I love our notes. Like that's great. That's all it says.
I always love to kind of leave something questionable there so I can watch y'all's reaction as you read it.
Choosing lunch. Well, what did you have for lunch today? Can we talk about that?
Like I said, seizure brain. It's fine. So I just didn't know what I was going to talk about today. And I had some sort of like an aha moment when I went to go get lunch, and I opened up my fridge and I had some choices. And
good choice or bad choice?
Good choice. It was good. It's good
Okay.
hibachi. So it was still good leftover.
So I would know like stir fried rice is leftover rice, so it's kind of double leftovers in terms of if you think about it. Okay,
You're making this a really
distracted.
complicated,
Okay,
which actually ties in really well to my story. So thank
there
you.
we go. You're welcome.
But then the other option was like a sesame Asian salad concoction
Your
deal.
fridge is amazing.
It was delicious. Honestly, it was really two really good options. And I'm ashamed to admit how long I stood there and trying to decide what I was going to eat until I came to the realization that like I didn't want any of it, typical. And what I really wanted was a peanut butter and jelly.
Oh,
Simple yet
downgrade.
satisfying peanut butter and jelly. So that's what I made. I made a peanut butter and jelly, and it was delicious, and it was everything I wanted, and I was very happy. And I had this moment of like, oh, this is like an example of what we've been talking about. We've had a lot of conversations applied in several different ways about, not making things overly complex, and sometimes simple is the way to do it. And I was like, oh, that's a perfect story. But I'm me. So I took it a step further because I overthought it. And I'm like, well, is it really that simple? Like, if I really look at this peanut butter and jelly, is it really that simple? And it wasn't. It was sourdough bread. It was not handmade sourdough bread because I'm not Karla Tuten. And if she's listening right now, she's probably going to be judging me for the amount of chemicals that were in this sourdough bread, but that's okay.
So everything's a chemical. It's okay.
Exactly.
Let judgy people judge. That's what they do. I don't worry about that.
And then the peanut butter was Justin's honey, organic, all natural peanut butter.
I'm
Don't
judging
get
it for a
that
different
face.
reason, but continue.
No, that is the peanut butter that once you taste, you will not eat another peanut butter. Like it's so
just a
good.
test for if you still care if people are judging you. That's all. Keep
Oh
going.
no, I don't care. You can judge me all you want. I'm right. So then
She's right.
the jelly wasn't a jelly. It was a strawberry preserve, like in that, like the strawberry preserves that come in the little mason jar with the picnic tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
Can you quickly define jelly jam
Smuckers.
preserve? What's the difference? Jelly jam preserve.
Okay. Preserve have like seeds in it, and it's made differently is my understanding.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Jelly is the most kid friendly, right? As far as like,
and jelly is tends to lean more artificial. Like might have like high fructose corn syrup or something in it. Karla will have to
cow hooves in it.
That's what I want. Yes.
Yeah.
Jelly. Give me the jelly.
Give me that.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, this thing looks really simple on the outside, but actually the layers of it are far more complex, right? And so it got me thinking of like, we tend to try to make things more complicated for the sake of making them complicated. But if we actually took the time and looked through the layers of the things that are what we deem potentially more simple, there's a lot more to tell and a story that can unfold if we just take the time to look at it and to dissect it. And we'll realize that it's a little bit more complex than it appears on the outside. That's my peanut butter and jelly.
Okay. Was it?
I love it.
I still don't know why you didn't get the leftover. You had two like Asian cuisine options, which sounds significantly better than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Look, that peanut butter and jelly was.
I'm not sure what's happening on the screen here, but this toaster looks like a piece of cake or something.
Yeah. So there's it's an old TED Talk from a while ago. Thomas Whitehays, I'm not sure how you say his name, but he said about making a toaster from scratch. Mm-hmm. Toaster is a relatively stupid object in our lives. For the most part, there are super, AI infused toasters out there. But he's like, I'm just going to make one from scratch because I want to prove how complex our life is and how we don't realize it's complicated. So he set about like, he had to make his own plastic, everything from the earth, his own wire, his own everything. And that's what made this toaster look like it is. It's a great TED Talk. We can put a link to it in the show notes. But that complexity, it doesn't end where you were talking about either, Beth, because there's all the decisions about those individual pieces and how they got there.
Yep.
And this is what I say when a lot of times people rail against simple or straightforward because they think that's what makes them like that will make them like everyone else. There will be no differentiation. And that's incredibly short-sighted opinion because of the complexity of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's the same analogy that I use of you could ask 10 people on the same street where I live and ask them all to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They would all be different. Mm-hmm. Every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And because they each have different ingredients, then there's also the ratio of those ingredients.
Yep.
everything about it going into it is incredibly complicated and means that as straightforward as you want, you could make a rule and say it has to have strawberry jelly, regular peanut butter, and regular bread, and yet you would still end up with 10,000 different variations. And that's the point, is that what we try to teach people are these best practices and in air quotes basics, because apparently they're not simple or basic. We had to do a lot of work to find them. But you can do that. And the inherent differences that make your department, and your builder will end up meaning that you will create a different sandwich. So people think they have to start with a completely, like, I'm going to make a salad, otherwise I'll be just like every other sandwich. No, it's almost impossible to be just like every other sandwich. Like, you'd have to try really hard.
Yeah. And I think what you said there about working really hard at each of the parts of that stands out, because just like I said with the peanut butter, I tried so many different peanut butters. I grew up on Peter Pan and Jif, and like all the classics that we all did in the 80s and or 80s and 90s.
The 80s. And not that old.
I was born in the 80s. Technically, I slid in there. But I mean, I've tried so many peanut butters in my life, and it took a while to find the one that like I love, and I can never go back to any other peanut butter because this one is amazing. And it's the same thing with like your company, your business, your department. You have to try things and figure out what works. And then that's when the complicated becomes simple over time as well.
Agreed.
Awesome.
Agreed. That reminds me of, 2-second distraction was somehow I watched some video. I don't know if it was on Reddit or where it was, but it asked a Michelin star. It might've been TikTok. It was YouTube. It just like popped up. And I have a lot of cooking stuff on my YouTube. It's like the autos. That's like what I tend to go to on YouTube. And it asked a Michelin star chef, what would be your last meal, like if you're on death row or something? I'm like, well, this is pretty dark, but that's a good clickbait article. And it's like, it's a simple meal, and simple to him. I'm looking at the thing like there's like 40 steps. It was some.
It was from Lab Bible, wasn't it?
Maybe that's where I saw it, which would make sense. It's probably trending. Then it got pushed onto my feed on YouTube. But it's for him, it's simple. For us, we're like, whoa, that's the most complex looking French toast I've ever seen in my life. It's crazy. I can't remember if I've shared the story of this new Ace Hardware right down the road from me. I can't.
No, but I love this also. When I saw this in the notes, I was like, this is a perfect theme, because Andrew is drawn naturally to either stories about gyms or hardware stores. Because we have had multiple stories about Home Depot checkout experiences, and like
it's still the best.
You got it.
The only thing Home Depot doesn't have, I'll go all in this one. So Home Depot checkout during pandemic, they went all in, and they have amazing self-checkout experience. The only thing they don't have is you only have a gun, like a scanner in your hand. So you only have one hand to do stuff with. But if you get used to it, you then load your cart with everything. You just beep, 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 beep. You're good to go. But there's no like scan it, throw it in the bag. So but in general, like you scan it, it's super fast, all that stuff. Anyways, there's this Ace Hardware. The area I live in it's called Seminole. It's the city. But there's also a neighborhood called Bardmore.
Sounds like Baltimore.
Bardmore Country Club, which connects to the Bayou Country Club Estates, which has like gated with a person there, security, right? That's behind the Publix, our grocery store, shopping center that this Ace Hardware is at. Homes directly behind it are 6, 7, 8, 2 million plus. So like that area is nice. You go across the street, the houses are old, 2-bedroom, 2 baths from like the 50s and 60s, probably 300,000 and 400,000. So that's just the area I live in. Anyways, this Ace Hardware is like right next to Publix, perfect location. You see it there all the time, but it's just weird. It's really weird. Like you go up to the door, and it's like no minors under 16 unless accompanied with an adult. I'm like, what? Like that's weird. And this Publix, you have kids all the time pulling up in their golf carts that they're street legal and then not street legal, but they could get there, and this is like one little road they have to cross. So there's kids all the time. This is really weird. And so there's these weird signs that almost feel unwelcoming, but then you walk in but it's super convenient. And then you walk in, you're like, why are there these little red tags on every little, I don't know what they're called, like the little peg that holds like the item on the shelf, whether it's like a drill bit or whatever it may be. You can't take, I just saw it today. You cannot take any item down from the shelf without an employee unlocking the little magnetic lock.
Oh.
What the heck? I'm like, do they have a theft problem? They just opened up maybe like 6-7 months ago. People are just getting used to it, like, oh, I could go to Publix and then get my like whatever project I'm working on at the house. Because anyone listening, Beth, you've done home projects. So you go to Home Depot one time or Lowe's, you start the project, you're like, oh crap, I have to
Forgot
go
this.
back. You go back like 3 or 4 times. You're not professional, so you don't have like when I was doing the floors upstairs at my house, I needed like I went through like 5 jigsaw blades. So I had to go back. I don't have just jigsaw blades laying around. But long story short, they have this weird signage up front where it's like no kids under 16 unless with an adult, which isn't like a common what kids go into a hardware store. Not really many. And then to get any item off the shelf, you have to get, hey, I want to buy this or look at it. Can you take it off the little peg and it has this magnetic lock? I'm like, what in the world? It's so unwelcoming, and the area doesn't really make sense. I would understand certain areas of town where like things are locked up, or maybe the tools or batteries, high value items. I could sort of understand that, but that was like I was buying like a new clamp that goes around like the hose dryer vent. Like somehow it got a little bent, so it's like I don't know, it's like $3. It's like a 4-inch worm clamp or pipe clamp, whatever it's called. I had to go find someone. I'm like, hey, I need to get this. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, just so you know, this is pretty stupid. Like I wasn't like a jerk. I wasn't complaining. Maybe that was a jerk move, but I'm like, this feels really weird. He's like, yeah, this is my life. I'm like, do you want anything else? Like, I'll walk around with this store. Like, I could let me help you out. I'm like, no, that's kind of uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to be like escorted around as if I'm stealing something. Like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm like, kind of feels that way a little bit, don't you think? And I felt like I was being pleasant, but maybe who knows if I was or wasn't. But so I don't know, just made me feel unwelcomed. Like, why am I here? I'll just go to Home Depot or Lowe's. Like, forget this place. So I give them 2 years.
Yeah, Ace Hardware's only exists under the premise that you're going to get good personal service from people who know stuff. There's really no other reason, or else it's like they go off the local gas station like kind of vibe. Yeah. Sometimes the super small Ace Hardwares where no one would ever go there unless it's just truly right around the corner, and so it's going to be in stock.
Or they got like the weird, and their shelves are always so tiny because they cram everything in there. Like they're always some like niche need, or like the one that is more popular around here. They have ammo, and they sharpen knives, and it's like kind of like this weird sporting goods store, except not Florida things. I have no idea.
Florida things,
super weird. But I'm like, why would they make the choice they had to order like 2,000 or 3,000 of these magnetic locks? You cannot take anything off the shelves.
Yeah,
it was a weird decision, but the message that it gave was like, we don't trust you. We don't want you to shop on your own. We don't want you touching anything unless we give you permission. So not a good vibe. So
yeah,
I give
sounds
them
like some builder websites that we've seen.
Yeah, that's good. So is that I don't know, are you making the comparison of gatekeeping content?
Well, you could if you overly gate.
There
right?
you go. So
if
overly gate.
If you're choosy about what you gate and you gate the right thing, then the gating isn't necessarily a bad experience.
That's why people have the visceral reaction of no, it must always be bad whenever we talk about the right way to do it. Yeah. But yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, just some things.
My story time is going to change up a little bit because my wife just got hit by an old lady with no teeth, she said, while picking up the kids from school.
Okay. I'm sure everything's okay if you're still here.
Life is unpredictable, kids. That's my story time.
It happens.
I'll be back whenever, but you all continue on. Have fun recording.
On. Yeah.
We'll miss you.
They're all safe. It's all good, but it is snowing hard and
you got to go do.
Kids are crying, so I'll be back.
Do dad things. Okay.
Rescue mission.
Rescue mission. You know what is fun, Beth? Should we try to? This is live. Like this is. I mean, it's not live, but should we try to get someone on real quick? Well, just for like 2 seconds, and we could edit out like.
Oh my gosh, that would be so fun.
So we're switching stuff.
Put it out to the family.
Bobby Lee, Theo Vaughn, Shane Gillis. Maybe we could get one.
Can we get some Jason Kelsey on here?
Jason, Taylor Swift was born in '89. I think you're an '89 baby. I'm an '88 as well. You're '88, so you're really you're probably getting your AARP cards in.
You know what? I don't appreciate that.
You get a senior discount?
Just kidding. I am realizing like 35 totally changes the game though.
Yeah,
so
I'm 34. I'm still young. You're 35.
Hang on to it.
Okay. Do you have any gray yet? Are you graying?
I went gray in my in my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's this badge of honor.
And I would honestly grow it out. My sister-in-law is growing out her gray and she looks amazing. And I would grow it out if I could, but it just doesn't with my skin tone. It just doesn't look right. And it doesn't help me because I already look like I'm 17 in so many ways because I stopped growing when I was 12. So it just is really confusing when you see this person who looks like they're 17, but they have like old lady gray hair. It's just, I just rather.
at the builder show. Why is that child here? Oh, it's Beth. Oh,
Oh, it's
sorry,
Beth.
Like, oh, who are you with your mom or dad? No, it's Beth.
That's legitimately what happened to us on our
It's
honeymoon.
hilarious.
But that's a whole different story.
That's really awkward. Let's distract ourselves. Let's talk about the builder show a little bit because I think that is coming up. This will be out on the 20 something. So we're like 4 weeks and counting. I'm super excited.
So excited.
I haven't been in 2 years, I think, and Vegas has been like 3 or 4 years for me. Right before the pandemic started I was in Vegas. So I'm excited. And then it snowed that time. I don't know if y'all remember that. It snowed on the strip. Like I think it was a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
After O'Neill Interactive usually has their, they have it with someone else. I forgot who it is this year.
They're doing the Builder Tech.
Builder Tech.
Yeah.
There we go. Always a great venue in Vegas. I'm sure there'll be some things posted up somewhere on All Access. I know we how do I want to say that? There'll be definitely invites to play just informal get-togethers. They're not 100%. They're not events. They're just like, hey, let's hang out before we walk over to the convention center, which it's so good.
Yeah,
like,
and come find us. Like I plan on being in Sales Central as often as possible. So yay, Karla.
Carla, what is happening to your
She
office
literally
right now?
brought the party with her. I hope people are watching this right now.
I got the same light as you, Andrew.
Well, mine, I don't know how to do that. Could you
Wait,
you
hold
probably
on.
got the bougie one, which lets you, let's see, slow. I don't know how to do it. Did you get the fill up view? It's the same. What button do you do it on?
Mine's the bougie version.
Auto.
Oh, I like yours. Hers is the classy version.
Yeah, with the bronze.
There we go.
What's like brass bronze? What's the color? Copper. I can't tell.
It's a bronze, I think.
I like the bronze vibe.
Okay, well, welcome, Karla. We were actually talking about you earlier, Karla.
Good things?
Yeah, mostly you judging me for my bread that I would probably be using, or no,
chemicals.
The
she
probability of you judging my bread that I used.
Yeah. So, do you have a story, Karla? I know you kind of got launched at it. Something fun, something interesting. Doesn't have to be builder related. Ideally, it's we don't have to do like a tag of not safe for work. Keep it PG 13-ish.
A story.
Kevin's
what was
back.
your story? Oh, Kevin's gonna kick me out.
Yeah. Kevin,
yeah, you got work to do, girl.
I do have
Kevin's
work
back.
to do.
I'm always like, I'm so busy. I don't even know which way is up. I'm
am
slacking you at
busy.
1 a.m.
She just does that though. She does her best work at like 11:30 p.m.
She has a like a script on her computer that just sends messages later in the evening to make
That's not even
appear.
me. Like half the time it's just AI. Like
There's 4 more builders that are signing up for creative services in the next 3 days. So you need to no, you can stay if you want.
Not even a lie.
There you go. That's a good question.
Yeah,
Karla, where do you see builders have the biggest challenges with looking good as they are and like design stuff? Like not as necessarily like font, but just like what's the like mental, is there like a mental challenge they don't want to invest in it? Or
I think no one's like thought about it or looked at it.
Okay. So almost
I think things like happen so
awareness.
fast that they just happen piecemeal. And then before you know it, it's like out of control and it's a monster.
Gotcha.
20 years go by and your logo is still just a roof line with like Times New Roman font.
None of that.
As you were talking, Kevin, I was thinking roof line. He's going to say roof line.
Which is remodeling, roofing, home builder. It's like, it's anything.
And they're like, I can use Canva and it all looks crazy. And I'm like, well, they're like, help me fix it. Easy.
Just to get everyone back up to speed. The great thing about teenage drivers is I get all my stuff in, I'm running out the door. I'm like, I'm going to go. And my oldest daughter pulls up in her Jeep and is like, hey, I think mom's in trouble. I just drove by her. Could you go back and pick up the boys? Oh, sure. Yeah. So now it'll be good, like family bonding. Like I could go and be the dad, but now she feels like she's the savior. It'll make her closer to her siblings. It's going to be great. So
and she's in a Jeep and it's snowing. It just makes sense.
Yeah, it's like exactly
the Jeep 4-wheel drive. I mean, ready to go.
Okay. This is quite possibly the most chaotic podcast episode ever, and I'm obsessed.
Okay, is it my story time? Karla, your story time? What are we doing?
No, I don't have story time aside. Like I can't make oat milk. I'm trying to do like this whole crunchy thing, and it's like terrible. It's like absolutely garbage.
Right, what's your device called? The nutter?
It's called a nutter, and it blends sprouted oats. I buy like the fancy oats, and then I add 1 date into it and water, and then that way I know it's
like an explicit rating on our podcast episode.
Why only 1 date? That seems very little. Like that seems not sweet enough.
It's not. It's pretty like not great. But
I think
you
I
know,
have
at least
reverse ADD though. I just can anything related to home builder marketing or online sales or design. Home
oh,
builder.
well, they told me I could talk about anything. I thought we were just talking about like whatever. Kevin, you go. I don't know.
When you finish, you'll connect it to like, oh, okay, that makes sense as far as your anticipated outcome was not what you did. So now you're in this
Yeah,
reiterative
it's just
process of
like
making
a
it better.
analogy for you don't need unnecessary ingredients in your strategy. Does that work? Like
We had this keep it simple theme, like actually, like
It
keep it
actually does work.
keep
I'm
things
not
it
gonna
actually
simple.
does
lie.
work.
Yeah,
See me at
which
Summit. Well, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. There we go.
Summit in
Awesome.
Chicago. Cool.
My story time is I was in Colorado last week visiting the winner from the summit, and it was a great reminder because they had an amazing agenda. And by amazing, I mean like very detailed. Like I was like, hey, I'll come hang out with you all for a day, give some insights, share some stuff. And they're like, they set this agenda of, I think there was like 9 different sessions, 30, 45 minutes each in length on different topics, some of which I talked at the builder show. So I was like, oh, they want me to say kind of what I did there to the whole team and other things. I was like, I don't think I've ever talked about that in my life. But
They
I
made their own
thought, you know
conference with
what?
you. It sounds like, man.
I'm just going to go in and I'm going to, we'll like use it as a rough outline, but I'm just going to do Q&A. And every meeting we started with just like, does anyone have any questions around this topic or generally? And it ended up just being basically 9 hours of Q&A over 2 days. And it was a
Man.
good reminder of a lot of things that I haven't talked about in a while because I'm always afraid to repeat myself. Which one is stupid because most people aren't paying attention. They might listen to the podcast while they're doing something else. They might see the blog headline, not read the whole article. People are busy. So repeating yourself is important, is kind of the first takeaway from my story time. And then the second thing is you have to remind people that it's okay to ask questions. As soon as some people ask questions, other people ask questions, but also just because you've been doing something for 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, it can feel dumb to ask questions. But this home building company has been around for a long time, sells a lot of homes every year, and yet they had a lot of questions, some of which would maybe be considered basic, but basic questions lead to more complicated questions or more insightful questions typically. Or at least if I wanted to kind of pat myself on the back, it's like if the person you're asking the question to understands kind of where else that conversation could go, you can get to some really interesting places. And one example.
Go ahead.
Well, you know, you got.
I was going to say what's interesting is I forgot his name, but from that company visited, emailed me 2 days ago asking about the market proof algorithm. And it started as a simple question. I only jumped in because like this actually happened. He's like, hey, I need clarity on this step, which is a very beginning step. It's like he had all the advanced stuff done, like how to pull the numbers, but he's like, when do I do this part or this part? And why should I keep that algorithm at community level, region, or company wide? Which is a very big question. But it started out as like, hey, where do I get this number from? I'm like, well, that depends, XYZ. So it was good, like just 2 email conversation follow up. I'm like, dang, kind of impressed that it's like, I took the question and I'm like, cool, this is fun. But like, imagine he doesn't really know me whatsoever. He saw Kevin for a little bit and is willing to like expose like, hey, I don't know this. I'm exposing like, I lack this knowledge and I need your assistance. Like, shout out to you. Like some people would just be like, I don't want to ask because that might make
Yeah. Well, one real small example of where we found ourselves over these 9 hours was they had a question about, hey, how much of our inventory in a specific community should we put on our website? Because we don't want it to look like there's just a ton. We don't want it to look like we don't have anything. Is there some clue to that? So we have that conversation. But one of the things that I noticed because of that question was you have 2 homes here that are within $220 of each other. So we're talking about things that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars range. You have 2 of the same floor plan in a multifamily setting, and they are within $220 of each other. If you're a consumer and you look at that, there's no information there to make a decision. Like you're like, well, why are they $220 difference? You look at the square footages, like everything listed on the site is the same, but there's this price differential and it's minimal. And so you're like, what's the point of having 2 of those up there? There is no point, but except for the fact that there are actually 2 for sale. But it led to this conversation of, you can you're allowed to raise the price of one of them. And everyone gasped. And the sales manager, I think, wanted to punch me in the face. But I said, if you raise the price of one of them by like $3,000 or $4,000, you'll sell the other one faster. And then there is no rule that says you can't change the price of that other one after that one sells.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not communicating anything. So other than the fact that there are two of basically the same thing with arbitrary pricing, you can take advantage of the fact that you have two of the same thing, but push the pricing artificially separate to make one be a perceived better value. And it kind of goes back to the peanut butter, like it, or just lunch decision. Like humans need feedback mechanisms to compare and contrast and to feel like they're making good decisions and to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, they want the certainty.
So we make choices. That's all relative choices. Is that oh, it's the book that you're like, get this one.
Oh, same as ever.
It's the other one. Caldini.
Like,
it's
influence.
Influence. Everything's relative.
Yeah.
Like we make choices relative. Oh, Carly's leaving. There we go. Yeah. But curiosity, they were identical homes. Like the two. That's confusing.
Well, with again, it's not just that they're identical, they're positioned and like same image, same description, same everything. So like, what are you?
I'm like, hey, why is that one a little bit more? Does it include, you would immediately think
exactly. Like, that's my point. Even if you don't change the description or the pictures, someone is likely to become a lead and say, hey, I'm confused. What's the difference between these two? And so one is actually this, like, adding friction is sometimes helpful. That's another thing that people miss all the time. A little bit of friction can actually be helpful if done correctly. And the reason they're calling is because they like the less expensive one more. They're just calling, like, am I missing something? Does that other one have stuff that I don't? Because if they are the same, I've been an idiot not to take advantage of this better value.
Yeah. And this is not where you went with the conversation with them. I don't think, but like, I bet there is like $500 worth of cost you could add to the other one and charge $3,000 more, and the value is perceived that it is $3,000 more in terms of there's an extra $2,500.
In this case, there already exists. So like we didn't go down there because I assume they're basically the same. It's a multifamily building, but the cost may actually be different. But this is an old lesson that people in marketing who get involved in product pricing learn or should learn quickly. Cost has nothing to do with price. It shouldn't if you're doing it well. So yeah. Anyway, ask questions. Simple questions lead to better questions, advanced questions that lead to insights. And that's my story time. Okay.
I like it.
I think we went long on the focused episode. So
we did.
Let's do two and then favorites and call it a pod. First up from doyouconvert.com, why OSCs are taking over. Why OSCs taking I thought that would be a different headline. That would be very attractive. Why OSCs are taking over on-site sales. That's not what the headline. It's why OSCs taking over on-site leads is a bad idea by Jesse Suggs. The saying goes, the online sales team is the best at nurturing leads. Hey, let's have them work with all of our lower converting leads who came in from walk-in and on-site appointments. They can nurture those leads since they specialize in that and generate feedbacks. What a brilliant idea.
Genius.
And then Jesse goes on to say why that might not be a great idea, because typically the conversion ratio is 0.2, 0.1, less than 1%. Let's just say that safely, less than 1% when that happens.
Wow. Imagine doing something 200 times and it only works one time. That sounds so... These people will last 3 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Like if that's your day, you make 1,000 calls.
Did you say guilty?
I said guilty because I remember being in a state of mind when I managed the online sales program of like just fury because all of these leads that we generated and appointments that we made that were just getting lost and not nurtured and not cared for, and was just like, fine, we're taking them back out of desperation and out of just like, this is not how you do it. They know so much better. Like they know how to do this so much better. I trust them to make something happen at this point. And so I'm guilty of this. And it was through the lens of absolute desperation and somewhat selfishness over the leads themselves. But it did work. And I won't lie, it did work in some capacity, but it also wasn't the best customer experience. It was confusing. It was way too hard on the OSCs. It left a lot more complications. We overly complicate it when we should have just made it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. Yeah. The closing paragraph says, remember the handoff process is just that, handing the lead off to the sales rep to take it to the finish line. Now, here's the thing that the experiment that I would like someone to run. Cause I mean, her example of giving someone 1,540 leads from a sales rep, passing it back to the online sales team and only getting 4 sales from the 16 appointments that they made, chasing after 1,540 people. The experiment that I want someone to run is, and again, in a very small number, don't do this on your own. If you work with us, don't do this without talking to Jen, Mike, or Jesse, or they will come find me. Yeah. I think there's something about the staleness of this. I always go back to the dating analogy when we're talking about sales because it's so applicable, I think. I go out on a first date with someone, they like me, but I ghost them for 2 months, or they ghost me for 2 months.
Yeah, they're married.
And then there's this amazing service that says we'll try to re-engage those people. And of course, the conversion rate is going to be awful because that person after 2 months has probably moved on in one way or the other. And so here's where this comes from on my end is we did have really good success at Heartland of having one additional call after the appointment was set, just to say, how did that appointment go? It was like the final part of the handoff process. Whenever we had, it wasn't consistent, but whenever we had the time, it would make that one extra call. And about 25 to 1/3 of the time, we would schedule a second appointment, potentially even at a different community, which again, this causes potential confusion and complexity. I understand. We were doing 400 homes a year in Pittsburgh when we were doing this. But we'd set another appointment because the person would say, you know what, that appointment didn't go so great. I don't really love that community. I don't like that salesperson. I don't like whatever. I wonder if anyone has stats that they would want to share or scenarios they'd want to try where this just happened faster. Meaning, like some of the numbers that I share with people all the time is I never let a salesperson have more than 10 A's, not allowed. You're not allowed to have less than 2 A's. B's could only remain B's for a given period of time, usually at once the full sequence was completed, 3-4 months maybe. The point is that the sooner I can get an on-site salesperson to say, honestly, I'm not going to, instead of playing the game of create a task, don't complete it, create a task, do something else, like this perception of motion, the sooner the on-site salesperson says, I'm just going to be honest with you, probably not going to do anything with this person, the better. Because if we wait too long, then all these numbers that we're talking about here happen. Versus, let me try to think of another way to say it. And remember, everyone, I'm on cold medication.
Mucinex.
But it's like we have to verify that the delay is being caused by the customer. And to assume that the delay is I don't want to say that. Finish that for me. Is
it the customer decided to leave
ghost
us on unread or read?
Yeah.
Right. It's not the on-site salesperson isn't being lazy. It's like they ghosted us. Like they're not responding.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I mean. It's making sure that the salesperson didn't just say like, hey, I'm going to phone this in because my system says I have to, but I'm not really all in it. And so for whatever reason, the follow-up didn't connect, the process didn't continue. Whereas someone else who's like in it, excited, has the systems and doesn't mind making a couple extra outbound requests, the connection. Now there is the point of confusion of like, who is this other person reaching out to me? And I do 100% agree that giving it back to your frontline online sales team, like they should never prioritize this over inbound new leads. So like, I'm not advocating that an online salesperson should be the one doing this, but I still think there's something out there that we haven't found yet as an industry that's different.
Well, I think there's a lot of opportunity here for online sales teams to collaborate and in some ways educate their sales teams on what works for them and their follow-up process and the payback or the payoff of doing such. Like when I was at Stylecraft, when Lacey implemented or, spearheaded their whole long-term follow-up process and increased sales by 12% in a matter of 2 months through that process that she built out, and she tracked it. When she presented that to the sales team, it was like, oh, it does work. And it was all of a sudden people were able to see, like, if I follow up with people, they might actually call me back. They might actually text me back. Or if I send a video email, they might open it and watch it. And it was just this reminder, kind of going back to what you said, Kevin, about like the questions that you were getting about marketing, is that sometimes people just forget and we have to remind them. But it also gives them something, a new tactics that they can then make their own, that are maybe better fit for the on-site process. And then you don't lose that connection. You don't lose that rapport that they built on site together that they had. Yeah. It's still the same person reaching out. They're just using some of the tactics that they may have learned from the online sales experts.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a fantastic idea. And again, to be clear, the article and us as an organization are telling you, don't send on-site leads back to OSCs. Trying to be super clear about that. Yeah. All I'm saying is that on-site salespeople tend to keep customers rated either too high or too low for too long. And that's where everything gets lost. Again, like, why do people become a lead? It's because they either want to take a next step, they have a question about something they can't see information on, or they need a human to hold their hand and give them the okay. They just want that human interaction. But all of those things are short, like it's short little bursts of opportunity. Like someone's not seriously shopping and interacting with people for 6 months. They're researching for 6 months or longer. And then like all of us, we can only deal with that level of intensity around something for so long. And then we're like, yeah.
So I'll be super quick. So we go on to another one. I actually think this is a cool opportunity, not for the online sales team, but someone else in terms of lead language. These are aged leads, right? They're aged. So typically let's say we had a business and we're buying aged leads, these would be what, 50 cents or $1. They'd be super cheap, really cheap aged leads. If you're buying leads, that's not our business model. But like solar sales, like super probably you could buy like 5,000 aged leads, whatever. And it's $5,000, whatever it may be. But if your numbers were, let's say you bought 1,500 leads, you had 1,500 leads. This is not your online sales team. This is someone else. They do outbound calls all day long. This is their life as a call center. They don't have the context of quick, good, warm leads that are friendly and want to talk. Their life is outbound calls, rejection. If one person had 4 sales a month and they're selling, that's what, 2 million in revenue or 1.5, depending on what the house sells for.
Yeah.
Then whatever margin's for, say it's 30 to 40 sales per year.
That's again where
unreasonable?
We do have that. We do have numbers on that. We do have companies who have had people really in that position where they only work aged leads and they don't get those numbers even. But my point is, forget the whole aged part of the conversation at all. Let's just talk to leads who, for whatever reason, are not getting the level of interaction that they expect or need. How do we solve that problem? And there is no definitive answer, but I still think it's a problem that needs to be solved.
Yep. And I bring that up, and I still think if they're aged leads and they're interested in buying a home, they'll be back on their own. So like, is there actually a point kind of to calling 1,500 people when like the 4 people that would have bought probably would have, I can't really prove that, but like they likely would have come back at some point if they truly were interested. I don't think you can pick up a phone and get someone to buy someone. They'll buy a house. Yeah. Like they were going to anyway.
This is the controversial part, and I'll tie it back to her article. And point number 4 of why this isn't a good idea is that it encourages bad behaviors and practices with your on-site sales reps. And it's true. And yet I will just tell you that no shots being fired at anyone in particular. Most on-site salespeople are bad. They already have bad behaviors around all of this, and sales managers do not or will not hold them accountable for it. So that's just where let's solve again. I think I like this framing more the more I repeat it. It's a problem that still has not been solved, and I wish we would just stop assuming that it has been solved, because sales managers are telling salespeople they have to follow up. But guess what? They aren't, and they don't know how to manage that well.
Nope.
Also, we didn't put this in the show notes, but or in the we're not going to talk about it, but we will talk about it next week. And I think it's important enough we should put it in the show notes twice, Olivia, this week and next week. Is there is an FCC ruling, by the way, that just came out that said that companies cannot pass leads on to multiple companies. So this whole business model of realtor saying I'm your source for, or some company saying I'm your source for new homes in an area, and then selling those leads out to multiple people to follow up, is going to go away in about 6 months when they start enforcing that. It's just super, lots of interesting effects that are going to come from that, that ruling.
I listened to most of that announcement. It was so fun. It was actually, it was good, but I'm like, this is really dry.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Next up from TheVerge.com, 48,000 companies sent Facebook data on a single person. What's the backstory here? Is a Consumer Reports study found that thousands of companies contribute to Facebook's data stores on every individual. And this isn't something that we don't know, right, Andrew? But it's interesting to see some of the numbers on this one of, and again, this is why I say every syndication platform, Homes.com, Redfin, Realtor, Zillow, every one of them will talk about, we have our own proprietary, people and niche that come to our site that we know. And my point is always like, yes. And Meta and Google know them as well. Because if you are a builder that voluntarily uploads a list to Meta of people, of leads to try to match for reporting purposes, guess what? Like, it's not rocket scientists. It's not rocket science. It's not, I mean, it is, but it doesn't have to be artificial intelligence to say, Builder X at Happy Acres just uploaded Kevin Oakley as a lead. If anyone else would like to run ads to try to reach Kevin Oakley, like, we know he's in the market for a home. And so it's that one example times thousands that we're talking about, where every company uploading this data on their customers to Meta to get better reporting and attribution is also by default informing Meta about what's going on.
Yeah.
And on average, they had 709 volunteers. Researchers found that on average, Meta received data from 2,230 companies for each of those volunteers.
They know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad, right? It makes you feel some type of way, but then we take advantage of it.
And we haven't talked about this in a long time, Andrew, but it actually positions Meta closer to what we've talked about with Amazon in the past, where, it talks about Home Depot, Walmart, Amazon, and other really large data broker companies submitting all this data back in. That means that, in theory, like, when you enter in your phone number, your Home Depot rewards card, whatever, right? They may be submitting what you actually purchased, which in the past we've talked about. That's something that really Amazon had to, like, they know what you're actually buying, not just what you're shopping for.
Like, Amazon's one to worry about, not Facebook, what you click on, but like what you're actually buying, to what address, to whom, to when, spending amounts. I'm sure that somehow connects to your credit and all that stuff. Like, it's so they know everything about us. To me, I'm like, this is a side stuff article. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, it's like,
yeah.
Well, I just love how simple this really is. I mean, it's incredibly complicated in terms of the amount of data points coming from different places. But the article says, we've all heard someone say our smartphones are listening to us, and they must know how, so that they know what ads to show. The truth is, companies aren't just sitting around waiting for us to talk about jeans. They already know we want jeans, what size we wear, what brands we like, and roughly the time of year we usually start buying them.
Yeah.
And it's not because of sorcery. It's just they're getting all of this data from multiple different sources.
Everything you click on, everything don't click on, but you stay hovered over, or like the view time on the screen. Yeah.
I think my husband has some cool books about this. Because
he's high speed.
Spiraled down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's why you don't have TikTok on your phone.
That's why I do not have TikTok.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Now let's skip favorites this week.
Yeah.
We've gone longer than my medicated self can hang on for. So that'll do it for this week. Stay tuned next week for double favorites, and we'll see you next time.
Double favorites.
See ya. Thanks.
Yeah.